Hello, welcome back to season 4 of the Sales Ops Effect, where we talk about all things sales operations for small to medium-sized businesses. This is the Sales Ops Effect, where we strengthen our skills as strategic leaders to grow businesses with integrity. And we will be focusing on, for the next few weeks, on sales stages, because this is something that it can be overlooked if you're in a business that has never really known about sales operations before, because let's face it, with a lot of businesses, particularly ones that are self-funded in the beginning, you just grow it is in a way that feels like it's organic. So you're not necessarily looking at specific operation structures. And that's the reason why I focus on sales operations for small to medium-sized businesses, because we need more help. Large businesses have already got a lot of that funding and a lot of that structure, but sometimes we're just going and going and going, and we're just making things up as they go along. And luckily for many businesses, it works, but for some businesses, it doesn't. And knowing what things that you can put in place to give you that kind of structure, it helps. It means that you end up avoiding a lot of those pitfalls that happens, right? And so we're going to be talking about sales stages today. This is an example of B2B, business to business sales stages. This would look a little bit different if you're B2C, business to customer, business to consumer. But predominantly, we talk about B2B anyway, but obviously you can just translate stuff. And again, with the sales stages that I'm going to mention, they may well be different inside of your industry, inside of your business. You may have more stages, you may have fewer. You may call them different things. That's one thing to learn about sales stages. If you're ever looking at or researching things online about this, you're going to see things that have different names. The language is different in every single business. And that doesn't mean that what you're doing is wrong. It's worth just looking at, what does this company mean when they say this thing? Because Salesforce will say one thing for sales stages, HubSpot will have a different recommendation. So I'm just going to give you an example of a standard set of sales stages for a B2B business. And what I want you to take away from this episode and from the next episodes that follow, that go into each of the stages more deeply, is what the stages are actually about rather than the name. Because the name might not be what you would want, but what happens inside of those stages, that's where the meat is, that's where the value is, right? So we have these sales stages. Sales stages are the typical cycle that a sale will go through from the beginning to the end, whatever the end may be, because we don't win every single sale that we go after. The presumption that we should win every single deal that we go after isn't realistic. The average win rate, that when I last checked for software as a service company, was 22%, as in you win 22% of the deals that you're going after. And win rate in and of itself can be calculated in so many different ways. If we haven't had that conversation yet, we probably will be having that in the future. Do let me know if that's something that you want me to talk about sooner rather than later. But the sales stages are the road that you travel to get from the beginning to the end, right? So I have a couple of examples here of what the stages would be. Qualify, develop, validate or deal review. Again, there's a bit of wording there. Propose, negotiate, and close. And close has 3 different parts to it, right? So those stages show the life cycle of a sale. So the life cycle from when you create a new opportunity, a new deal in your CRM system, to when it's being closed. And no, we don't delete things out of the system once they've been closed, right? The expectation that everything that you put in at the beginning should make it to the end, please get rid of that. Yes, we would like it, but that is not realistic. So the reason why I'm mentioning that specifically is if you're working with salespeople, there are some salespeople who know that this deal that they've been going after, it's not going to come to anything, right? But they're going to keep it in the CRM system because they want to pump up their numbers. They want all of their analytics to look like as if they're going after a lot of opportunities at the same time. But if those opportunities are dead or frozen for whatever reason, because whatever client we're going after at the time is not in a position to buy from us right now, then it's useless. It shouldn't be in the pipeline. It's just clogging up room. It makes it look like as if things are better than they actually are. And let's be real here. When you're looking at your analytics, yes, they are often shown to the board or they're shown to your investors and things like that. Of course, you want to put a nice spin on things, but for people who are looking at sales operations, people who are in charge of sales operations, we need to look at the reality. So if you're being asked to leave out this report for whatever reason because somebody has to make something look pretty for the higher ups, that's their business. But if you're looking at things as a sales operator, that's you in your sales operations position, or if you're running sales operations yourself, but you're also the sales director, or in a very small business, you're the main salesperson, you're the owner of the business, you're the sales director, and your sales ops, which is a lot of businesses. For this period of time, when you're doing sales ops, you need to be looking at sales ops for exactly what it is. Don't fool yourself into thinking that all because you've got 1,000 opportunities in the pipeline, that all of those opportunities are real when some of them haven't been contacted in 3 months, right? These sales stages as well, when it comes to analytics, as I said, you're going to want to look at the cycle, how long a deal has been in that cycle and what your average deal cycle is. And obviously all deals won't always work to the average. But once you have that average, then you can use it as a benchmark to compare things to. So if you know that your average sales cycle is 44 days, and you've got some deals in there that are 300 days, and they're the same type of deal that the average is based off of, at the very least, that requires you to be looking at that deal to say, why is it taking so long? Is it because it's the same type of deal, but it's just a lot bigger? The value is so much more, or what's happening with it? But regardless, it's a flag. Let's go and look at that, right? And then, and we will get onto this in the next few weeks as well, looking at the time it takes inside of each stage, because this is where a lot of people don't actually pay attention to the finer detail. At the beginning, you can qualify in or out very, very quickly. Great, which is what you're supposed to do. But if we're getting to the point where we're inside validation or we're inside proposal, actually, let's go for proposal because we'll be involving legal and things like that. If we're in the proposal stage for like twice as long as we're usually in a proposal stage, what's going on there? What's going on there? Is it the case that actually this is a really complex deal, or is it the case that it got to proposal stage, legal found something which we couldn't work around, and the salesperson simply just hasn't closed not qualified that deal or closed lost that deal? Because during this whole thing, even though some of those stages look like as if they're purely internal, they're not. During the whole sales cycle, the salesperson is still talking to the client, right? And you get more and more information every single time you're talking to the client. Ideally, we don't want salespeople just be having conversations with the client for no reason. They're going to be asking questions. And so information is going to be exchanged. So you can lose a deal at any point in the sales cycle. Yes, at any point in the sales cycle. And the reasons why you're losing the deal can change. It could be because the client no longer has basically taken the ask off the table. You know, there's a restructure happening. The people that was going to be signing it off, they're not there anymore. Or it could be something has changed in your business, which means you simply cannot offer what you originally said that you could because the timelines don't match up and things like that. And there's so many variabilities in here because it really does depend on what kind of business that you're in. Because if you're in a kind of business where timelines aren't too much of a big deal because what you're selling them is something that is almost automated, great. But in many businesses, there's a human element to something. And if what they're asking for is happening in the dead of August, when you know people just aren't going to be around, or the people that need to be around aren't going to be around, and they have to have it done then, and you cannot get it done then, you might have to forego the sale, right? So over the next few weeks, we'll be talking about each of those stages, starting with qualify. And we'll be going through what what was the trigger to get to that stage, what that stage is about, and what the trigger is going to be to get to the next stage. Because again, if you're running sales ops and you've got your team of salespeople, obviously they don't report to you usually, and they report to the head of sales, you're going to want to have the description for what each of your sales stages are written out somewhere. That's a part of your training program. You can't presume, even if your high-level titles of sales stages are easy to understand, that people will understand. You write everything down. You make that a part of a salesperson's onboarding. Sales stages, in many cases, are what's used to calculate the probability of a sale as well, using your weighted and unweighted numbers. The weighting there would be the probability that would be assigned to each stage. So for example, you would put 10% on qualify and 20% on proposal, but close one, it would be 100%. So those probabilities would be calculated against the amount of the deal, and that would give you your weighted numbers. That's something, again, we can go into a little bit more. But there's a summary on sales stages, and we will be talking about that in the next few episodes. So join me and ask any questions in the comments where you're watching this or listening to this, and then I will answer them. And if I haven't, then you can email me, hello@salesopseffect.com. And also, would be a good idea, and I would very much like it if you followed me on LinkedIn. So you can find me, Charlene Thompson, on LinkedIn, and I will catch you next week. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, please look at the list of other episodes. I'm sure there's another one that can help you. See you next time.